stink bug.
Well, it's better than a live one.
Although I've never. Have you ever smelled a stink? Like had one do anything?
I haven't.
I think it's just one of those fucked up things where they gave him this name, just trying to like ruin his whole existence.
I don't know, because I have actually had people tell me that they've smelled it before, but I've never crushed one. I have only ever gently picked them.
Gonna smell.
What'd you say?
It's a stink bug. It's gonna smell.
Have you smelled it?
Oh, it smells awful.
Really?
Okay, so start by telling us your full name and your pronouns.
My name is Dylan Michael McMahon. I go by he or use he him pronouns.
That's it.
That's it.
So I know you artistically largely as a photographer, but how would you describe yourself as a creative person?
I guess nowadays photographer, that's more or less what I'm focused on, but anything hands-on really. I grew up in kind of like if you wanted something, your best bet was to just try and build it. So I got really into carpentry at a young age, started doing stuff like that. By high school, carpentry class, building furniture, actually like studying underneath my teacher and doing projects that he was doing instead of just the normal class projects. And so after high school, that led to me being a piercing apprentice at a tattoo shop, and I was making plugs and selling those and like jewelry and shit like that. So I've always been really into carpentry, gotten out of it over the years, but I'd love to, it's something that I've always done. But so yeah, I guess just a builder in the artistic sense, a creator, but not like one particular medium, I guess, unless it's what I'm focused on in that time.
How did you get into photography?
My grandfather was a hobby photographer, and growing up my mother got more and more into photography through business. When I was a little kid, she would travel around up and down the East Coast to used car dealerships and photograph all the cars on the lots for all the old like Auto Trader and car magazines. So when I was like really little, I remember like sitting at the table, like eating dinner, like doing my homework or something like that, and like she's on the other side of the table with her hands in like a dark bag, like pulling all of her reels out and things like that when she'd get home, categorizing and cataloging everything, and then putting it in a lead bag. And one of the super regular things was spelling quizzes or things like that. She'd ask me the questions while we were driving to the airport, because we would have to drive like every day to like FedEx and UPS and stuff back behind the airport where they have like all the big cargo planes coming in, because most of the labs that she used, and then even later years when she was doing studio portrait work and stuff like that, were just all out of state. So yeah, largely because of her. I grew up immersed in cameras. She was always trying to pose us like the generic images that you see in a frame, like a stock photo frame. It's like what she loved to do was like really tacky, like studio stuff. But yeah, I guess it sunk in.
What were your first photos that you took?
I mean, I couldn't tell you first photos because like when I say like I was immersed in cameras, like a few years ago my mother gave me the camera that she used and had like when I was born. So like I have been around cameras like since the day I was born. Like she was laying in bed like taking pictures of me and stuff like that. So for first photo, but probably like memorable, was this like really shitty like skinny instant film camera, like a Polaroid kind of thing, and it printed out these like wristband things that had a photo on it, and so this like these flimsy foil, and you like rip it and stick it together and everything. And I remember just burning through like multiple packages of that, of just like the blurriest, shittiest photos of my hamster. And like those are what like that sticks in my mind as like something of just being like remembering the photos that I took, like having him like sitting on my windowsill and like the light coming, I composed those photos as a kid, with this hamster just sitting there staring at me. but yeah, then after that, it was a lot of animals, a lot of like action stuff. It's always outside.
And I think I remember you talking about also, like, did your mom have a portrait studio at some point?
No, after the car stuff, she got into studio photography.
Okay.
And by that I mean traveling around, bringing a studio mainly to like children's daycare centers and like childcare facilities and stuff like that. She worked for a couple different companies that. Hey Pete, hush. Sorry, I'm dog sitting. His name is Texas Pete. I'm sure I'll pop him up at some point. You guys can meet him. Up the views on this video, you know. But yeah, no. So she started doing portrait photography through like children's daycares, and then that elevated into doing like she still kind of does it, but like Richmond Volleyball Association and like all these like major like Richmond striker or not strikers, kickers like football or soccer, and you know all these big sports leagues and daycare centers and all this stuff, and just like yeah, just go like teams, just waves of people. You know, you're starting at 5:30 a.m. or something and not done until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And photographing thousands of people in a day, and that's why I think it like really sunk into my head, was because growing up, like she's doing it. You know, she's out there for a whole day. She's taking all these photos, and then she's coming home and she's having to like catalog all this stuff, like remember her shot numbers and group them right there while she's doing these shoots. And you've got like 7 minutes to do a whole team. You know, so you have to do all your individual poses of that, and then you have to get your team shots, and you have to get everybody in 7 minutes, next one. And if you fall behind schedule, like that just domino effect the whole day. So I think just seeing like how organized she was and how she like still enjoyed it, I think was crazy to me as a kid, and it like really drove me to like, and not just in photography, but like anything I took on, I have like a like if I'm gonna do it, then I'm gonna put forth the effort to make sure that it's done as it should be, with the respect to like the craft that it is, but also like I have to have fun while I'm doing it, because if not, like I'm sure some of you have seen, I can go a little crazy like when I'm trying to like get the details right, like I just want anything put up on the wall, like it. If you're gonna put forth the effort of doing something like that, like I think it should like really express who you are, and that mindset I have like nothing but thanks for my mom.
I'm curious, since you grew up watching your mom take so much photography that was so planned and posed, you yourself are a very candid photographer in a lot of the things that you photograph, and I'm sort of curious like how in your own development as a photographer you develop this habit of taking a camera with you everywhere you go. And it seems to me like when I watch you take photographs that you're really seeking to capture a candid moment, but you want it to be like very beautifully done and very artistically done. So I'm kind of curious like how you came into the practice of doing that, period, and then also like your process of what you're looking for in those photos.
So being so immersed in it, like I mentioned, it really made it so that when I got a little older and I started kind of thinking like I want to do like what my mom was doing, I started working with her at the company she was working for. So I'm working in a studio, I'm doing editing, things like that. But I'm 31 years old, so I grew up in the era of digital cameras, and it burnt me out. This is Mordecai. Say hello, Mordecai. It burnt me out, and having that like routine and that go, and parents yelling down your throat and trying to tell you how to compose their child, and like you can't do that. After high school, I stopped messing with the camera for years. I literally didn't touch a camera for a really long time. Probably 2012, maybe 2013, A really good friend of mine, Zach Clark. He works at Lakeside Tattoo. Go check him out. He had a family business that had a never-ending supply of disposable cameras, and so they started giving me disposable cameras, and I just started shooting them all over the time, all over the place. Just kind of always having one with me, and then in doing so, I kind of had this rift that everything that I noticed that I was being drawn to take a photo of lacked people, because I felt I didn't want people in my photos anymore after that was all that I was surrounded by taking photos. My grandfather didn't do architectural photography. He took pictures of people as well. So I didn't realize it until that point when I got so burnt out that when I fell back into photography and I really started to get into it, leading up to the years that have put me in this chair today, all of my photos, they didn't have people in them. For years I had an anonymous Instagram account and it was nothing but graffiti and train photos. And you can go back and you can look through my page, you're not gonna see pictures of people. I made sure to put myself in environments and things like that, and I didn't walk around with a camera around my neck, it was tucked in my bag or tucked in my pocket. And when I got to that place where I knew I was gonna, make this photograph, I'd sit there for however long it took. If I had to come back for a few days, whatever it took, if the spot was busy or something and people came by, cool, I'm not gonna take this photo today, I'm going somewhere else. And then, 2019, put on a show with Doug, and a couple other people, some really great local photographers here in Richmond. We focused on trains. Really inspirational moment for myself. First time I stepped out publicly and said, "Hi, my name's Dylan and I take photos and these are my photos." I'm the person that you've followed for years and shared so much love or hate. You looked at my page, you loved my work, and it, that's when everything changed. At that point, I had recently become really close friends with somebody who was moving up to New York, and it was just kind of this click in my head. It was if I'm going to continue down this path of displaying my work and doing something with film photography, then I need to push myself to break down all barriers. I need to completely relearn it from the start, forget anything that I know, because everything I know makes me hate photography at that point in my life. So, put on that show with a little 35mm point and shoot. I got really nerdy about it. I fucking, got a shitty light meter. I downloaded another one on my phone. I walked around and just studied. That's basically what I did. Was a pretty introverted person at the time. And just walked around, just light metering everything, just studying everything. It was trying to get my eyes to become that light meter, just understand it in my brain, testing myself all the time. And then I go to New York, and I started doing this twice a month, hanging out with friends, and they were vinyl DJs, and they were putting me in these situations where I was just back in it, surrounded by people. And so I took this, newfound love and understanding of composing everything around me, and I kind of blocked out the idea that these were people. They became structures. They became these objects that I had to sit and watch for a second, because they were the flowing limbs in the breeze at this point. They weren't anything more than that to me. When I focus on, sometimes it's work in my mind, I'm working to accomplish a personal goal, nothing will stand in my way. I think a few of you saw that at the rodeo, when you took your eyes off me, and I'm just floating around in the back. If I want to get somewhere, if I want a photo, I'm gonna get that photo. I'm gonna get to that place. No one or anything is gonna stop me from that. That's how it is for me now. Yeah, I feel like I answered parts of your question there, some of your question, but yeah, run it back.
So, in regards to the photos that you take, like when you walk out of your door and you take a camera with you, which you usually do, and you're going out into the world, and whether you're going to some kind of an event where you might want to photograph something, or if you're going to hang out with friends, or like wherever it is that you're going and you're taking your camera, those photos that you take, which I like from my point of view of what I can see of your work, it feels like it makes up a large body of what you do. What are you hoping to build with that body of work when you're taking your camera out into the world and like photographing these things that you see? Like, what do you want those photographs to be?
Well, alongside with the kind of like I mentioned a minute ago, the like how I will kind of take it really seriously, almost as if it's a job. I don't leave my house without my camera. Like even to walk down to the end of the block to the market, like I have my camera in my pocket. So much so to where like it's the beginning of 2024. Last year in 2023, I left my house 4 times without my camera. In the whole year, no matter where I was going, what the situation was, like it becomes secondhand. Like I'd leave my phone here all the time. I'd leave my wallet here. I'd have to come back, or I'd just say, oh, forget it. But I'd have my camera with me, and that leads to me photographing everything. And personally, I've knocked my head around a lot. And, I carry a notepad with me everywhere. I have to take notes. Like, I'm terrible with people's names. It's not intentional. It's truly not intentional. I have a notepad so that whenever I meet new people, I write down notes for myself so that I can try and help myself remember, like, because I'll never forget a meeting. Like, I'll never forget, like, meeting you here and we talked about this and, like, you had this drink and, like, you were wearing this thing, but no, I don't know your name. And it could be years later, and I'll remember that, but I won't remember your name. And so that's kind of led to me just photographing anything and everything that I come across, and I don't show it to people. That's kind of the other thing is I have really intentional projects. I have my everyday walks. I have my hanging out with friends, capturing those fun, candid moments. At this point, I carry the camera because it's what I feel I need to do. Like, it really just, like, it gives me purpose. I don't know, it sounds kind of cheesy, but, like, I feel like I grew up in that family, in the family that I grew up in, and I have this mindset, and it would be a waste to not do it. So, I don't really know what I'm intending to do. I have a lot of projects that are kind of in the works. I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of things that I want to structure or create a structure to put together all these random images from these days. But I guess at this point, it's more or less, I've never been a writer. I'm a photographer, so I'm trying to create a photographic journal of my life, in a sense, because, times change real quick. I do stay true to who I am, but the world around you is forever changing, and it happens really fast, and it becomes really easy to overlook. Hold on one second. Yeah, it becomes really easy to not intentionally forget, but overlook memories. And in the same regard, I don't process my film really fast, and that's because, like, I try and be intentional with the photographs that I take. So that memory is there because I'm sitting and I'm studying and I'm watching this subject and I'm, like, choosing to compose, like, the photo that I'm gonna take. That memory sticks with me for a while. So I toss my film in the fridge and, I come back to it sometimes a few years later. And for me, that's like when I process that work and I, see that image, it's like, boom, like I'm right back there. Like I'm in that moment again. And for me, that kind of makes it so that like focusing on specific projects and things like that are fun, but they're more intentional and in the moment. And photography for me, as I said, I think I've found myself to be more like personal, like use it as a personal journal. So yeah, I'll totally work on projects with people, and I'll one day finish the, bunch that I have started. But in this moment, like, I'm just gonna continue to take pictures of everything. Like Noah's dark colored jacket matching the perfect rusty colored fence this morning on the walk. Like, like if I wouldn't have taken that photo, if I wouldn't have stopped and taken that photo, I would have thought about it for weeks probably. Like, it's little things like that. Like, what am I going to do with that photo? Whenever I process it, I'll share it with Noah, but it's probably not going to get posted anywhere unless he shows it. Like, I'm not going to show it to anybody else, but I'm still going to, that's how it is for me. It's like, I'm going to take that photo. I'm going to continue to work. I don't always feel like I need to have a project or a goal in mind, because it's endless. Like, I could finish this right now. I could, go sit at my laptop or pull my phone up and I could start reading about something else that I don't know about. Specifically film photo oriented, whether it be gear or process or something. And, I don't know.
Okay. All right, I'm going to switch gears. What is something that people don't know about you or a misconception about you?
I'm really shy. I have really bad social anxiety. A lot of people don't believe that when I say it. They're always like, "Oh no, man! Like you're everybody's friend, like all this stuff." And I'm like, "No. Inside, I'm like crumbling. I'm like trembling right now with this camera pointed at me." That's one thing, and then that's probably the biggest thing that I would say. I'd like to just say is. How incredibly fucking terrified I am of you people.
Well, Pete's back. Looking a little bit more cheerful.
Yep. Texas Pete in the house.
What do you feel like is your biggest challenge as a creative person?
For me personally, finishing a project. I put it on the back burner, or I work on something else or something like that. But like, as I mentioned with the photo of Noah earlier, like projects are bigger and they take more intent. And for me, that means that there's a lot more thought that goes, for everybody. You work on a project, there's a lot more thought. That's obvious, but not accomplishing a project or not finishing one weighs on me a lot. It's like unnecessary, stuff back here. So that's one thing. It's definitely like not working on something all the way through and throwing more on my plate and things like that. And then instead of just like kind of focusing on one thing. When I do, it's fun, but my mind kind of wanders a little bit, and I always like to, not in like an ADA or ADHD or something like that, more or less like when I work on something, I like to step back and work on it slowly, because the original idea or the process of which I go in at something is not how I'm going to end up. Like, it's just my creative style. Like, I don't go in and come out in the same way. So if I do a project from start to finish, or I procrastinate and I get rushed on something, I'm never happy with it, and for me, it's like, well, why did I even put forth this time? So my work style is definitely slower. Over the years, that's just kind of led to, as I said, like unfinished projects. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to finish them. You know, that big book I always bring to markets with all the car photos and stuff like that. Like I think the last time I counted, it's like just under 550 like classic sedans and or like really interesting older model cars, shot all in and around like Richmond and Petersburg and Hopewell. And I was like composing this big old book and stuff like that, and then I just kind of like switched up the cameras that I was using, and the quality of my work like changed like quite a bit. The way I started to photograph cars changed, and yeah, so it's like not one that's never gonna get finished, but to me visually, as I've continued to lay out those images, they just look so different that it kind of put like a little bit of a block.
Do you feel like that's kind of part of the process though? Like when they changed, did they change in a way that they improved? Like, do you feel like the quality and like whatever it is that you're seeing in the more recent pictures, do you feel like it is somehow better or
Yeah.
elevated than like the older ones?
For sure. I mean, a lot of those photos that I originally took, although like I love them and you know people say they love them and stuff like that, most of them are shot on a point and shoot. You know, like it was just as simple as that. Like that's what I carried with me. It was an Olympus Infinity Junior. I just bought another one. Like it's my favorite little just auto point and shoot. I think to successfully carry and use as a primary camera such a basic camera and like still not limit yourself to be able to shoot in any environment, whether indoor, outdoor, that's why I went back to the basics and started using that point and shoot and stuff. But when I say like my work changed is because like I just started like more regularly carrying an SLR. I started like changing out my lenses and things like that. I started processing my own work and like, you know, really showing more detail on my metering and things from doing all that light study, like I said. And so that's kind of how my work changed. And so to lay down, you know, the photos of me riding my bike around endlessly, just taking pictures on the weekends of all the cars with point and shoots and stuff, like that's a really cool book that I still like I flip through and like I'm gonna put together and put in print and put out there. But there's like it's like a hard wall. Like there's just one day where like you look at the photos that then I started taking in, like you're like, oh, okay. I took a trip to Washington State, and while I was out there, there's this like strip near where my brother lives in Tacoma, where it's just like you're on the Puget Sound and there's a little 2-lane road and just like classic beach like diagonal parking all the way down, a couple little bars and restaurants, but for the most part it's just like scenic walk, and there's a railroad track on like the other side. And I guess the day that we went, there was just like, and from what my brother said, it was just like all the time, it's like the strip in this tiny little town. Like, it's not tacky, it's not like a boardwalk, it's just like a road, but it's just like all these lowriders were going by. And like they were like completely restored, like absolutely flawless lowriders. And I noticed a lot of them had they had the plaques in the back, like their chrome pieces of like their club that they were in. And a few days later, I actually saw one of those cars at a skate park that I went to. And so I walked up and I talked to the dude and I asked him if I could take a couple pictures of his car. And he was like, yeah, man. And then, you know, we're chatting for a minute. And weed is like the universal, like, just really get in there. You know, you just smoke a joint with somebody and, like, you're just best friends. So he invites me to this birthday party that coming weekend, and it was at this big park, and it was a birthday party and release party for one of their like founding club members for this lowrider club that he was in, and they were just having this big barbecue. And my dumbass shows up with a roll of Ectar 100 and a roll of Portra 160. I left all my other film because like I don't even remember, like I just went straight there or something like that. sun's going down. So like like when I said like work mode, it was like this fine line of there being so nice and hospitable, and I wanted to like, hey guys, and introduce myself, but it was like I parked the car, I walked up, I was like, do you guys mind if I take pictures of your car? And it was game time. I shot through both of those roles. Also, mind you, this was a few years ago when there was like crazy wildfires, so it was like stretching up into Washington, and like there was this glow. Like the sky was just that hazy orange. There was this like it was beautiful, and like I'm in Washington State, so the trees, I just want to like hug them all, and it was the coolest moment for everything that I had been just like in hobby, just like personal interest, culminating to this. And so I burned through these 2 rolls. I got these portraits of one of the dude's sons like sitting on his car, and then the guy like, he like nudges me after, and he's like, hey man, do you mind sending those to me? I got a buddy that has a magazine, and I think it'd be really cool because my son's about to turn 18, and I'm going to gift him this car. And so like I'll kind of he's going to like become a new member in the club, blah blah blah. And so like I send him these photos, and I send a bunch of these people these photos, and then like all of a sudden I start getting like all these people hitting me up. And like I find my stuff like on like an online publication, and like actually like in like a lowrider print magazine and stuff like that. And like that was that. It was just like I went out there, I took these photos, and then like we shot shit for like hours after, and just like ate barbecue and smoked and things. But like that quality of work doesn't stand side by side with my riding my bike on a Saturday, drinking endless cups of coffee with shaky hands and point and shoot,
Right.
So that's why it like some of those projects, like they're not done, but I'm just trying to figure out how to like not now have 2 projects on my hands where I now have to make 2 card books. Like I want to still put them all together, but I'm just slowly working out how, or feeling like I have enough new work to balance out the amount of old work, the scales.
Yeah. What do you want people to feel when they look at your work?
That's an interesting one. I noticed that was one that stuck in my mind when you asked some of the other people. It's really dependent upon what the photograph is, because not to come across or be rude or anything, but like I don't care what people think about my work. That's why I don't show most of my work. The work that I do show, I would maybe like to have it invoke something, but that's all dependent upon what it is. For the 2-year show, I displayed some work that meant a whole lot to me that I had been sitting on for a long time, and they were photos of a friend of mine's mother had passed away, and they asked me, her and members of the family asked me to photograph the horse-drawn carriage thing where they'd go around the park up in Oregon Hill, and something like that was, like I said, like that was like, it clicked, like it was game time. I'm doing this work. This is like extremely important to me. Like someone asked me to share like such a personal moment with them, that I wanted to like, do my absolute best, like better than I think I could ever do. Those of course are photos that I want to show if I do or when I do, and I want that to invoke emotion. I want people to feel something, or like those candid, slightly like thought out, like when we're out like dancing or goofing around or doing whatever, and I like capture just those big smiles. Like yeah, when someone sees that, like I want them to like feel that happiness, that warmth inside, or I photograph, or for a good while I was photographing a lot of bike culture stuff, Broad Street Bullies. If you don't like them, fucking deal with it. But stuff like that, like I can't tell you how to feel when you look at a photo like that. Like to me, that's happiness. Like cutting through the streets, riding with people, seeing the smiles on their face, capturing those moments. Like to me, that's happiness. Bikes are a huge part of my life. But I know for someone else, they're gonna look at that photo and it can just invoke rage inside them. And I don't want that. That's not my intent with that photo. But I can't tell people how to interpret my work, so therefore, like, I don't really focus on that because I think that can be a bit distracting, unless it's like, as I said, like intentional. But if you carry a camera everywhere, you can't think about every aspect with every photo. I'm not Tyler Shields. Like, I'm gonna click the shutter if it's a shitty photo. Like, if I want that moment, sometimes, like, I'm gonna do it.
What is one work of art that you think everyone should experience?
This is another one I kind of thought about from some of your questions. It's a really tough one for me because like I said, I really like carpentry, and you know, a beautifully made table is a work of art. But if I say like, yeah, you should really check out this guy's table, you're gonna be like, sorry, what? So to photographs, there was one that just kind of like always just like made me feel sick. I remember seeing it as a kid, and it just like always just like struck like so much emotion and like anger, sadness, just like absolute disgust. Like I said, like actually like made me feel sick. And it's the Vietnam War photo with the man with the gun held next to his head just before, you know, he's executed. And my dad's side of the family is all Marine Corps for the most part, but they're Marine Corps. My grandfather retired as a major. My uncle was a full bird colonel. It's like one step under general, just to put it into ranking like that. You know, that's who it is. My dad doesn't leave the house. Like, I don't leave the house without a camera. My dad doesn't leave the house without like 4 separate artifacts stating that he was in the United States Marine Corps. So that was a lot of things that, you know, my mom's side from California, Italians, photographers, just like, you know, my dad's side was like this. So there, like, violence, unfortunately, was a thing that kind of just, like, shown when I was young. And that was just, like, a photo that just stuck with me personally. And like I said, because it just, like, invoked so much emotion when I saw it for the first time as a kid, it's just stuck with me my whole life. It's a horrific photo. Like, you know what's gonna happen. You see it on his face. You don't know what he did. You know, it doesn't matter. It's one that, like, you just can't hide from. As horrible as that is, I feel like that encapsulates humanity. And that's why I feel like it's one that I think that everybody should see, is because, like, it's not all rainbows and butterflies, you know? We got a lot going on right now. It's horrible, and you can't hide from it.
Facts. What is your dream project?
Oh, man. I've never really been interested in scuba diving, but I became, like, you know, online buddies with this guy. Hopefully his work is going to be at the swap. I think I got him to send some files to Pro Camera, check them out. But he did a lot of underwater photography, and that sparked something in me that connected an old dot. The woman that owned the photography company that my mom and I worked for, and my mom worked for a really long time, her husband was a National Geographic photographer, but he specialized in underwater photography. And he would take these, you know, multi-month excursions, like they do, with all this crazy gear. I mean, he had 2 massive rooms in their house, and, like, out of a, like, 3 or 4 car garage, like, one of the whole bays was nothing but his, like, underwater diving equipment and various other stuff. So, like, seeing these crazy giant bubble cameras and all these lighting arms and rigs and things like that. I always thought was super goofy when I'd see him, but seeing his work was amazing. But this other guy that I became friends with via Instagram and started looking at his work, the way that he started to really understand the way that light like differentiates in water and like underwater photography and the beautiful things that he started to capture on film, I think it sparked something in me that hasn't disappeared since like the minute that I saw that. And so I think underwater photography like is something that it takes everything that I've found to be so interesting, like motion and the study of light and all the the important things of photography, and it just slows it down. But at the same time, it makes everything so much more difficult, and that's just like it's fascinated me for years now. And so I think that's probably a dream project, is to like find myself in some sort of area, which is really weird for me because I don't like the beach. I've never really liked the beach. Tropical environments are like, they're beautiful, don't get me wrong, but I'd rather be in the middle of the jungle or not because I hate the heat. So I'd rather be like in a snowy mountain in the woods, like rolling around with a bear or something like that. That'd be the dream gig, but I'm not going to take that from Matt. He's too good at that.
Matt's so good at that. Oh my god. All right, last question.
I'm prepared.
What's next for you?
Well, probably culminating a lot of these projects. Because like I said, none of them have left my mind. It's been something that's been kind of like weighing on me more and more. And I now have private studio, which is a strange situation, but I couldn't pass it up when it fell into my lap. And so I got it now. Love me or hate me for it. I'm going to try and do really cool things with it. Darkroom is next. I have the gear. I've had it for a while. It was my uncle's. It's been passed down to me through family. It all still works, but it is a large, like it's a bit larger and larger. And I don't really want to start with that because stuff is expensive now. So I've been doing a lot of reading, talking with friends. A buddy of mine is going to... he's not using his darkroom equipment now, so he's going to gift me that so that I can have a more intentional setup. And I just want to disappear into the darkness. Forget all of you folks again. I just want to start making prints. I really want to get back down to prints. We've had a lot of conversations, and probably a lot of you folks, about like correlating printer sizes and stuff like that. And I find it really funny because, I put together Glossed Over Photo Club, Film Club, things like that, and like there's only a handful of people in the club that like do darkroom stuff. And so what that means is like with the print swap that we have coming up, or with just exchange work, anything, or just in general, like we want to put on a show, we got to do this. The endless battles of conversation about how to appropriately size an image to print, to then be put into a frame, all that other stuff is just such a freaking headache. I don't quite get it. I also don't have a printer, so I'm not, it's one of those things that I'm not just going to sit there and like read about correlating printer sizes with my frames. I don't want to do that right now. I'll put Mordecai on it, but getting into the darkroom will be just more true to size, negative to print. I can make my sizing to whatever I want. I want to learn some sick bird signs in the whole process. But I think that's next. That's personally next is getting the darkroom set up, getting in there, and selling off all the gear that I have. I think I kind of want to start fresh. I have a lot of cameras that I really love. There will be a couple that I hold on to, but for the most part, like, I reorganized my whole like camera area yesterday, and I have a bunch of SLRs that like were gifted to me or things like that that like don't work, and so I want to get rid of those, and intentionally buy like my first good condition, really nice camera. Got lucky and came across Contax G1 a few years ago, but it doesn't have a film counter. So like you just have to kind of like remember, and like that's not terrible, but like when you're in the moment and things like that, and then it's my first like electronic camera too. I've always only had like fully manual cameras, like no working light meters, no anything. So that was like a big change up, but it was like it still felt like kind of limiting. And there's like a lot more that I can do with that camera. There's other lenses, there's building up on it, and there's things like that. So it just kind of got to the point where it was like the first camera where it made me start to rethink, like, okay, I need to stop grabbing every thrift store camera or things like that and get rid of all of those, the non-working ones, the ones I've used once or twice and like I'm not going to use again, and like buy a decent camera, buy like a decent working camera, and have something that like connects with me, so that when I come home with that roll of film and I process it, I'm like really excited to get in the darkroom and like make that print and like work on it for however long it's gonna take to like make that print. And I'd like to say that hopefully that will push me to maybe put on either another show really well focused with a handful of people, or maybe my first solo show, if I can get to the point where I find this vision that I have to like kind of click enough that I want to share it with people. But there's no promises there. None at all.
All right, pick up Texas Pete and say goodbye.
All right. Hey, Pete, come here. Come here. Come here, you little sauce.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for asking me to do this. Thanks for any of the folks that watch this. Come to a glossed over meeting if you'd like, but you really should. Second Sunday of every month. We meet up. That's Pete. He's down there somewhere.